All right, welcome. This is from the Couch Sports Talk Radio. Hope everyone's having a good night tonight. It's the 22nd of May, the height of allergy season, unfortunately. So if you see me run off screen real quick, you probably know it's because I cut my grass yesterday. So before we get started here, please like, notify, subscribe, and share to help get the word out. Tonight we're kind of do a couple of things. We're just going to kind of talk to each other, but also we want Q&A from our audience members. So last week, one of our avid fans, Mike Paoli, the Eagles fan amongst us, kept asking a question. We didn't get to it. We cut the show, and he was giving me crap. So I'm sure he's not on yet, but I will make him watch the first 5 minutes, because I'm going to go to Eric because he wanted to know specifically from you, week 15 of the season. What do you feel about the Battle of Pennsylvania when the Steelers of Pittsburgh face the Eagles of Philadelphia?
Well, I mean, I like what David said last week. Excuse me. It'll depend on who's healthy and who's not healthy by that late in the season. If for any reason Jalen Hurt is dinged up, it could be the Kenny Pickett revenge game. That'll be fun, right? I'd like to see Kenny Pickett actually get in there and see what he can do.
Man.
I know, right?
I didn't even think about that.
He is the second string.
Yeah.
So I don't know. A lot to be said. Philadelphia, do they have their locker room in control? My prediction is I think their coach will be fired by week 15, because I think, judging based on how it was going last year, I think they've got internal issues, and they brought A.J. Brown back. So if they don't get off to a hot start, I think things could get rocky in Philadelphia.
All right. David, any thoughts on that? Or Walter White?
Yeah, no, I I like the matchup. Again, I think week 15, it's kind of like Eric said. I mean, it depends on the health of the team. Philadelphia's done some good things in free agency. Saquon Barkley's there, but can Saquon Barkley be healthy in week 15? Again, the locker room. I mean, A.J. Brown signed his contract extension. I don't know if money was his issue, or what other things might have been bothering him at the time. Hopefully the coach Sirianni can get that locker room settled down if he's not the issue himself. But again, I look forward to the game. I sit here and we talk about, all these games. And again, I think health plays a pivotal role in any of them. And by week 15, as we looked at the seasons past, I think it becomes a battle of attrition. And I think it also, at week 15, I think that's right in the middle of that gauntlet of a run for Pittsburgh. So you're either going to get Pittsburgh going, they're going to be playing between their division rivals at that point, and then they have that cross-conference game, and then they go back to their division rivals the last 2-3 weeks of the season. So it just depends on what Pittsburgh team you're going to be getting, and so, but I think it's going to be a good game. Pretty evenly matched game, defensive versus offense. So we'll see what happens.
All righty. I also want to throw a shout out again to Brian from Safeway. He's like, thank you for the shout out, but you said I was a Eagles fan. I'm a Seattle fan. And I'm like, no, I know you're Seattle, but sometimes my mind, says one thing, but my mouth says another, and I'm not going to debate it. So I'm going to make amends here. Brian, thank you for watching. And yes, we know you're a Seahawk fan, and I would love to have you on the show to talk a little Seahawks. So I got to get something off my chest here. My Islanders suck. My Knicks suck. My Mets suck. Like, I got one shot here. One shot. And that's my boy Aaron Rodgers, who's looking good in OTAs. But that doesn't mean shit. Is anyone as miserable as I am with their franchises? Or am I the only one?
No, I'm not miserable, but I got a question to ask you, Sean, because we are doing Q&A. So I'm going to ask you a question about Aaron Rodgers. And this is just something from a personal standpoint that I need you to answer what your thoughts are. If you're the Jets, do you play Aaron Rodgers in the preseason and let him get used to live bullets against another team, or do you sit him out and hold him for week 1?
I think we do the same thing we did last year. The third game of the season, throw him in for a series, and that's it. I mean, this is a guy who's been playing for 18 years. It's every team. It doesn't, it takes till week 3 or 4 to really get into football, conditioning, football mindset, and everything. But I wouldn't take a chance. You just need something stupid to happen.
Is it his first major injury that he's coming off of?
First, well,
I mean, Achilles is a major injury for anybody.
Yeah. He's had a separated shoulder. He's broken a couple of fingers, but he always plays. I mean, that's the one thing I have to say about Aaron Rodgers. I can't stand him off the field, but on the field, he's a man amongst men. I mean, this guy's got fingers overlapping and going like this with his pinky, and he's still throwing the ball, and that's just who he is. He's not one of these guys who goes down and but no, I would not play him in the preseason. Maybe a series and call it a day, just to get a little bit of juices flowing.
Eric, what do you think?
I would probably play him in the second preseason game since there's only 3. I'd probably play him. Oh, I don't know. I'd probably play him a good quarter and a half and let him kind of get used to it. Can't live in your fears, and I think you've got to get him up to speed. And as good as I think they'll be, a lot depends on his offense and producing, because obviously they don't have the offensive minds. Nathaniel Hackett is his choice, but Nathaniel Hackett is a guy he can kind of dominate. So I think he's got to it's all about his timing and it's all about his rhythm, and he's got to get into rhythm. I'd play him the second preseason game about a quarter and a half.
Yeah, I think he's got to get in there. Like I say, Achilles injuries are tough for anybody to come back. And I know that he hasn't had setbacks. I know, at least from what they say, but as an older quarterback and as an older individual, those type of injuries can nag. And he needs to be out there with live bullets, not in practice. He needs to work on his footwork. He needs to work on escaping defenses and knowing what his limitations are and what he can and can't do against live ammo. And so to me, it would be a no-brainer for him not to play. I'm not saying every game, but he needs to get a good quarter and a half of work in.
They'll play him against the Giants, and because the Battle of New York, it doesn't matter if it's preseason, it's the Battle of New York, and Jets-Giants game is huge. One of the few preseason games that actually sells really well for the NFL. And the fact is that the Giants, their defense isn't terrible, but they got that O-line has to be tested. And I think if they're going to throw in him against anyone, they're going to go against a team like the Giants, who he could beat up a little bit. That's just the way it's got to go.
Sure.
There is no bigger preseason game than when the Bills come into Pittsburgh.
When the Bills do what, Bark?
Every time. When the Bills come into Pittsburgh, I think that's the biggest preseason game. What do you think, Walter White?
I'm not saying nothing. I'm not getting in there. I'm not having this conversation. If it comes up in any kind of question, I'll respond in kind. But I'm not going to take your bait tonight. But I will discuss tight ends that are irrelevant.
The servant waits as the masturbates. So we got that going for us. Speaking of masturbates, did I mention Applebee's is the bar and restaurant official of the NFL? It's about as satisfying. So anyway, I'm still waiting to get my letter, my cease and desist, but we have to have more than 3 people watch us. So okay, who do you think? We're going to talk quick NFC North. Which team in the NFC North comes in last in the division? And
NFC North?
AFC North, I'm sorry. Steelers, Ravens, Browns. Yeah, Ravens.
You really want to start the show like this, huh? Okay. Look, I'm going to use Eric's logic because this is the logic that we hear from him. And I'm just going to say this, and it's of no, it's not bashing the Steelers. It's really not. Teams have to gel, and teams have to play cohesively. What we've learned over the course of time is teams who are consistent in their organizations tend to do well. I think that's evident with even Mike Tomlin being the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers for 20 years. He hasn't had a losing season, I don't know if ever, maybe once. So that consistency shows through. I think the biggest issue with Pittsburgh right now is just, and that's why I would pick them to finish last, and it's very minimally, is because they've hired a new offensive coordinator. They have a new quarterback. There are things that have to come together that take time, just like he talks about Buffalo rebuilding and taking time and doing this with youth. Well, you have to do the same thing as an organization when you switch over so many important parts: offensive coordinator, quarterback. I know you have your defense, and they're fantastic. But other teams in your division continued to get better. And I'm not talking like Deshaun Watson. Baltimore got better. They did. They sure did. They can match you in the cornerback position. They drafted 2 young rookie cornerbacks, and they got Derrick Henry better. But that you can tell me that yes or no, and I'm not going to argue and debate this. You asked me my opinion, my question. I think Pittsburgh finishes last in that division. Cincinnati's got Joe Burrow coming off of injury. They still have T. Higgins. They still have Jamar Chase. They drafted the wide receiver. The running backs are going to be new. They got rid of Joe Mixon. They got Zach Moss. They got Brown. So that might be a little bit of a transition. But, in the AFC North, those teams play each other tough in that division. So I'm going to say Cincinnati finishes third. I think based on what Cleveland did last year with 4 quarterbacks to finish in second in that division, I'll give them the nod at second. Miss Witt, I agree with you. Cincinnati's offensive line is not great, hasn't been great for 4 years, but Cincinnati did go to the Super Bowl with probably a worse offensive line then than they have now. So I'm not saying that Pittsburgh is going to go 3-14. I think they finished 9-8, 8-9, but I think that division is so competitive that I think 8-9 can get you into 4th place. So that's just my opinion, but I'm not talking bad about Pittsburgh. I think it just, like Eric says, when you have new components, it takes time to put them together, and Pittsburgh has that. So we'll see.
All right. Eric.
I was reading today that Russ has a lot of input on how the offense is being built. So it won't be a lot of new learning for him. It'll be kind of roll and go with what he wants, like they did with Ben. When Ben had a new offensive coordinator near the end, it was Ben's kind of offense. So here's the thing: Cincinnati defense. You didn't mention that they're bad, and they didn't get any better, and they lost all their secondary. Didn't get any better. You say, oh well, Baltimore's got some rookie corners. Okay, it's harder to learn that than playing offensive line. So Okay, put your rookie corners and your 32-year-old running back that's got 300,000 miles back there, and that's what's going to win you games. We'll see. Lamar Jackson still has to win in the pocket. His receivers still have to get better. He's still got to throw. He's 1-7 in his last 8, or they are 1-7 last 8 with Pittsburgh. Not saying Pittsburgh's going to win the division, but it's far from a runaway with Baltimore. It isn't. In Cleveland, Deshaun Watson has 13 touchdowns in 2 years. So go ahead and play him all the time. I can't wait. Yeah, Deshaun Watson's your plan for why you got second place. They'd have been 4th last year had they played him all year. And guess what? If he's healthy, he's going to play all year. And behind him, the Josh Allen of Josh Allen's, the turnover machine, Jameis Winston. Okay, so go ahead. Jameis Winston's going to get you second place. If Deshaun can't finish the season, which he hasn't since 2020.
I will say before you start talking the quarterback TD nonsense, Kenny Pickett had 12 in 2 years.
And we won 10 games with that. How many games did we
okay. So touchdowns are not as irrelevant as you make them out to be.
Okay, but how many games did Watson win the last couple of years?
I understand your point. All I'm saying to you is touchdowns, passing, are not as relevant as you make them out to be. If Kenny Pickett can throw 12 in 2 years and your team wins, right, and your team goes 9-8, but Deshaun throws 13 in 2 years and Cleveland's just a bad team. So you can't use that argument. Touchdown passes don't.
Yeah, right. So Baltimore lost, Patrick Queen, right? We're going to replace him with Simpson, who
they got Roquan Smith.
Maybe he's high on, but right, it's a 2-linebacker system, right? So they got a guy was a backup that's coming in. My argument to you, and you guys refuse to listen to this, they won 10 games with 13 touchdown passes. So you double that.
Okay.
You're going to win 8 games on a coach that won 10 games with 13 touchdown passes. It makes no sense. I mean, Russ would have to throw 13 touchdown passes, and then maybe you win 9 games. Maybe, but he's not. He threw 26, and his worst year wasn't 13 touchdown passes. So ideally, he's going to have his worst year of his career in an offense that he's designing with an offensive line that has improved, because blocking it's not as hard as you make it out to be with high pedigree guys with the best running back room in the North. You can say Derrick Henry, but I'll go with 3 running backs. I'll take my running back room. I'll take my yards per carry, and I'll take my production over one guy. So, ideally, it boils down to, can the Steelers' offensive line gel? But I don't think they're 4th. I think Cleveland or Cincinnati's 4th. I think Cleveland has issues, and I think Deshaun Watson, they don't have a very good team on offense around him. And I think Cincinnati has major issues on defense, which we all ignore. Just because Joe Burrow is you guys' daddy doesn't mean that he's going to come back and win you 12 games.
All right. Well, I personally think the Browns will come in last in that division. Crazy enough to say. Pittsburgh, I want to say, because they're I have to say that is the most brutal schedule I think I've ever seen Thanksgiving on. But it's because, they just a lot of talented teams, and the NFC North. But I think the Deshaun Watson debacle will come to a full head. It already has, but I think this is going to be one of those. If Deshaun plays almost all season and they lose, I think the nail's put in the coffin and the debate is over what was the worst trade in NFL history. But I don't have much faith. No.
I still think there's one trade that tops that. Herschel
Walker did give the Cowboys 3 Super Bowls, and Minnesota got nothing, admittedly so. But the amount of money and what it has done to the league with quarterbacks and the guarantees and everything, this particular trade kind of screwed everybody. Well, what are you pointing at?
Oh, well, Miss Witt wants to come over and decorate Eric's wall. And I said, well, that's how you decorate a wall. You see?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Yes,
Okay.
please. So please do.
Miss Mama Witt, I will give you gas money.
And a From the Couch sweatshirt just for decorating the wall.
I will give her a From the Couch T-shirt because when she's painting, she won't have to worry if she gets crap all over it because no one watches the show.
Hey,
So we're all good.
boys, it's progress.
It's progress.
There you go. You know, we've gone from the sheet to now we got a helmet, and at least I'm not looking at Big Ben every week. So,
but I do want to say that my theory is not about hate in Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be a very tough division, and again, I think this division is going to be won and lost on attrition. I think it's going to come down to injuries, and I say Pittsburgh because that end of the year schedule is brutal. And they got to be ready. They got to survive the beginning to get through to the end. I mean, that's where they have to make their hay. Is Pittsburgh needs to come out strong. Otherwise, that back half of that schedule it's brutal. And if there's health issues, if TJ Watt goes down, if anybody goes down, it is going to be a brutal last stretch of the season. And that goes for any NFL team. I'm not just talking Pittsburgh, and I'm not trying to be a Pittsburgh hater. Attrition is going to be key in that division. It really is.
oh yeah, they're 5-5 or 4-6 going into Thanksgiving. It's over.
Yeah, they got to go hot, and their schedule isn't too bad at the beginning, so they've got to win 5-3, 6-2 in their first 8. I don't disagree with you. I mean, there's a lot of teams, and I'm sure Sean will mention it, and we can talk yours later on, but there's a lot of schedules that are really tough if you break a lot of them down. And I think the NFL is like, hey, let's try to match up all these teams.
I think the NFL is saying, let's try to get some new blood into the playoffs because these teams that keep going. I mean, Buffalo's schedule is atrocious. I mean, it is. And I don't, I'm not predicting Buffalo to go, 14-3. I did say 12-5 or 11-6, but I had my reasons, but so be it. I mean, part of it's fandom and part of it I look at matchups, but we'll talk about that later. That's not a question. So
let's be fans. Let's remember that. Let's just not be. That's why you're in the logical logic, and the one missing isn't the logical logic.
And I did. I mean, I gave our team some losses that I might have not, but we'll discuss that later.
Quick question: did anyone see what they're going to do in preseason with something about tracking the ball and
they're going to do the electronic tracking for first downs so that the first down markers will be they'll be the secondary type thing, but they're going to try to track first downs with whatever, if they put a chip in the ball, whatever it is they do to electronically track the 10 yards and see how that works. And if it works well, they're going to actually implement it for the 24 season.
Well, that's one thing I didn't know that I had read today that the ball is actually already chipped.
Mm-hmm.
They have a chip in the ball. Right. So it's not going to affect the ball at all, which is kind of cool. But
well, you have to know that because that's how they get all those next gen stats for air yards and so on and so forth. That's all tracked through a chip in the ball. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
Okay, well that's kind of cool. I was wondering how it's actually going to work, and are you going to see a laser line across the field, or that seems pretty cool to me. It seems like it's way long overdue.
I'm all for taking the game out of the refs' hands because they're terrible.
Yeah. I admit, the more you can take out of the refs' hands, the better.
We should get AI to call penalties.
Yes.
Offensive pass or pass interference.
Yes.
You just do like they do in the Super Bowl, and you don't call anything unless it's egregious.
Yep.
I'd like to. You guys watch the NBA playoffs, how they challenge? It's kind of interesting. They can almost challenge anything, whether it is a foul or they can turn it into a foul. And I kind of like how that the NFL, you can only, I believe, challenge, and you can't challenge a penalty, I don't believe. Can we? Are we up to the point yet? I don't think we are. You can only challenge.
I thought pass interference you could.
Well, you can't challenge pass interference anymore. You used to be able to. And then that was a 1-year experiment. The problem that I have with the rules in the NFL now is that, the coaches get so many challenges, but the NFL actually stops games to review plays themselves to make sure they got it right. So why can't a coach just say, I want you to make sure you got that play right? Why does it have to be, well, that's a challenge, but you guys can stop a game for 5 minutes to see if you got to play right? Why can't I just tell you, make sure you got that play right? It doesn't make sense. But anyway.
Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of you only challenge twice, but if you are correct both times, you get a third. And I understand you don't want people using it for timeouts. I get
Sure.
it. But, I mean, there's some crap out there, but okay. This is way off subject.
Yep.
Okay, so we talked about the AFC North. What about the NFC North? Now, who do we think's going there? I mean, I know Green Bay, great run last year. Great run. Does Detroit take that over? Does Chicago come out of nowhere? Does Minnesota not come in last in that division?
I think Chicago barely comes in last in that division, but I could really see Minnesota tumbling. Not tumbling too far, but I could see Chicago come up again. Minnesota, whether they start Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy, they had a turnover with their running backs. They brought in Aaron Jones. They kept Justin Jefferson. And they still got Osborne and Addison. I give Chicago another year to really gel with that team. I don't think a rookie comes in. I mean, C.J. Stroud was an exception to most rules that we've seen in the NFL in the recent years when it comes to rookie quarterbacks and what their expectations are. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But, I know they got weapons for Caleb, and their defense is pretty decent. So I can see Chicago finishing as high as third, but I could see them also finishing last. I can see Minnesota eking out the third place finish and then have Detroit and Green Bay at first and second. That's how I look at that division.
All right, Eric, what do you think?
All right, so now that we take the fandom out, and I can just accurately look at these teams. The teams that have the most needs are probably Minnesota. Chicago has a lot of weapons around Caleb Williams, but he's got the biggest bust potential, and maybe he takes time to develop. This isn't the Pac-12 kind of defenses he's playing, so he's a big unknown. So it's going to be one of those two. And last, Green Bay's, I like them. They're up and coming. I said I liked them last year. I liked them before the Dallas game. On the internal chat, I said they're going to do something. I like the Packers. I think they have a really young core, really good young. There's something Buffalo needs to look at and do around Josh Allen. And so I like that offense.
Alrighty, so I will continue here. Yeah, I think Detroit's gonna take that division this year. Is the dogfight over?
Yeah, they're fighting over my feet. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Anyways, I'm good. She's moody as heck. I apologize. Hey, but I do think it's going to be Green Bay, and I do think it's going to be Detroit. Detroit's got a good team, well-rounded team.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think Detroit. People show me stats and everything else. I'm not a believer in Jared Goff. But I mean, he's getting the job done. Then Green Bay, Chicago. I think that could surprise a lot of people, but Caleb Williams is the unknown factor there, and it'd be so tough for him to all of a sudden come through and break through this division because it used to be years ago, it was Green Bay. That's all you had to worry about. Green Bay. Now you got Detroit to worry about, and Minnesota, I think, is they're going to be not good.
Well, again, and I think my biggest thing with Chicago in any of this is, like I say, a lot of it comes down to the coaching and the development of the player. And I just look at the historical failure of the Bears franchise. I haven't seen them make strides from the front office to the coaching staff side of the ball that would, from a talent perspective, yeah, you got DJ Moore, you got Keenan Allen, you got these people. But did you go out and hire the right coaches to develop that talent? And to me, that's where Chicago's lacking. And that's where I don't think they have their vision. They got the tools. Now you got to have something to bring those tools together to mesh and to actually perform. And I think that's where Chicago lacks.
So sorry, Sean.
Go ahead.
I think the big thing is I don't think Chicago upgraded their offensive line enough. And I think they've got a lot of weapons, but I still think the offensive line was a big problem last year.
Yeah, and I'm in your corner, Dave. Eberflus, I cannot imagine for the life of me why they have kept him. I don't know. I don't get it. He's won 9 games in 3 years, 10 games in 3 years. It baffles my mind. Okay, yes, I know Robert Saleh's in the same position. And that still baffles my mind a little bit. But I just, this guy has shown me nothing. The offensive coordinators, I mean, if they didn't throw a screen pass, they would never throw a pass. It was driving me nuts.
Yep.
And I'll come back. Does anyone have anything else to say? Because they're going to come back to me, and then I'm going to go into a little different subject here. Okay. You know why I always complain about this, and I want to know your guys' feelings, is, the doggo. The difference between being successful in college and successful in a professional sports league, it's night and day. You could be amazing in college and be terrible as a pro. Jamarcus Russell, number one.
Sure.
And I know this has kind of been beat, and I know people are going to get pissed off when I say this, but look at Caitlin Clark.
Sure.
I mean, she was a scoring machine. She was getting 40 points a game. Now, it's nothing. And is that because she's on a bad team? Is that because, it's just a different thing, and maybe she's tensed up a little bit, and it's not this free-flowing thing? Or maybe she's just not that good.
Well, look, I don't think Caitlin Clark just became bad overnight. I think, again, you play college basketball is played different than the pros, just like college football is played different than pro football. That's why out of all of the college players that play, 258 or 9 get drafted. You don't get college teams that go to the NFL. You get 258 individual players and then undrafted free agents to fill out a roster. So again, I'll take college football, for example. When you look at the guys and you look at them play, you're playing teams that are beneath you in some conferences. You don't get to play the good teams every week. You're Alabama and you're playing Bowling Green, or you're playing these teams, and you make these guys look fantastic. You make these guys like wide receivers run wide open down the field and catch everything and look great on all these tapes. In the pros, that don't happen very often. It happens because of a blown coverage. It doesn't happen it is a rarity, not a regular occurrence like they do in football. Like I said, one of the hardest things for a quarterback coming out of football or out of college into the pros is to actually throw a wide receiver open, because 9 out of 10 college quarterbacks are throwing to wide open receivers. It's very rare that you have to throw your wide receiver open. And that's the biggest adjustment that quarterbacks have to make coming in, is throwing that guy open, knowing how to do that, knowing that the receiver is going to be here, don't throw it back here. Even Josh Allen, when he came out, was having issues with that. He'd throw the ball behind the guy because he was used to throwing it open as opposed to throwing the receiver open. He's gotten better, but he's still not even where he is, because Buffalo ranked, I think, 31st or 32nd in rack last year, or yards after catch. So again, those things have to be addressed from a quarterback standpoint, but even defensively, different schemes in the pros that these guys have to adjust to. They're used to playing either man or just regular zone, basic zone. Now you got cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, 2-man. I mean, it's just a whole different game. Eric, I'll let you go on. I'm talking. You talk.
Well, so Caitlin Clark is 3 or 4 games in, and she's just starting to realize that she's got to learn to play in a different way, because everybody's as big and fast and strong as she is. And so, I mean, that's a lot of it in the NFL. Playing quarterback, look, you got to be able to process. You process this in 4.5, 5 seconds, and the NFL is going to be 3, 2.5. So it's as much mental as it is physical. So a lot of times it's the hardest position to come in and do very well in, because it's really difficult. You've got to be able to process. You got to be able to pick up an offense, and you got to be able to have the mental edge that great quarterbacks have. How many type she does, but that's because everybody's as big and fast and strong as she is, and so she can't just dominate with physical, be the physical specimen she is, playing a bunch of girls that are younger and smaller than she is. But I mean, it's the same way in the NFL. I mean, and that's why I don't know about Caleb Williams. I think he's got tools. He could be good, but Mahomes sat and watched Alex Smith for years. Had he had to come in from the Big 12 from Texas Tech, where they played no defense, and be a star right away, I don't think he would have done it. I think he got used to the speed of the game. He got used to getting beat on by his defense, who was pretty good when Kansas City had Alex Smith. They weren't great, but they were good. I think all that time in the fire of practice really got him used to the speed of the game, and then he used the talents he had. And so, that is that. I believe it takes time. It takes time for any rookie. It takes time for a rookie wide receiver who needs to be a number 1 wide receiver in an offense. It takes time for these young guys, especially skill position guys, quarterbacks, wide receivers, not necessarily running backs or linemen who are more rudimentary of what they're doing, but guys who have complex things, option routes, things that they have to think about. It's not physical, it's mental.
Well, before, thank God we don't have a lot of WNBA fans and whatever watching. But the one thing I will say about Caitlin Clark is we're talking about her. When would we ever have talked WNBA on this show? I mean, it came up before soccer.
But the sad part is, though, is that, I think a lot of the controversy of the Caitlin Clark situation with Angel Reese and everything else, all those WNBA players, they're good. They're good at what they do. I mean, Angel Reese is fantastic. I mean, Cheryl Swoops was amazing. I mean, all these players, they're good. It's just finally, it finally was a story enough that created interest. And the ladies tournament this year finally created that buzz, and it had that hero and villain type atmosphere, even though they're not really villains and heroes, but they had the pitting of one against another, and it was compelling, and it was in the press and in the media, and they thrived off of it, and they ate it up, but it got people involved, and that's good. It's good for the sport. It's good for the WNBA.
Absolutely. Question: do you think the best team in the WNBA could beat the Detroit Pistons?
No.
Okay, because I mean, I'm thinking the three of us could grab KD and Jeff, and maybe we could score 12 in 48 minutes.
The problem in that scenario would be is Jeff and I would be arguing about what's more important, the guy bringing the ball up or the guy making the layup. And so,
to me, it's all about this. It's the same argument you have about Caitlin Clark, like Anthony says. Number one, she has to learn to play defense, but more importantly, they would just get out physicaled. It would just be a physical mismatch. And again, in basketball, I know it looks all glamorous and these guys taking threes and doing this, but when you're in the playoffs and you're playing those games, you win in the paint and you win right in around the key, and you're getting bumped. And if that happened, the men would just out physical. It's just a fact. And
so I think, Sean, and then I'll be real quick. I think if you put an all-star team of WNBA players, they could beat the Pistons.
Okay.
maybe.
I would say that I would love it to be mandatory for NFL referees to have to referee NBA games, because the speed at which the NBA moves and that ball moves and everything goes, well, it's definitely better for you. Like Gene Sarator used to talk about it all the time. He goes, if you want to be a great referee, you got to ref basketball because it's so much faster and you catch a lot more things. So,
and you got to be under 65.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, and they need to be paid and professional. So, but we'll talk about that later. Real quick, something that popped in my mind when we were talking about Detroit. What if the Detroit Lions and the Rams never made that trade, Goff for Stafford? Do the Rams win a Super Bowl? Would Detroit be as good as they are now?
Eric, I'll let you go first. I've been answering first. Let you go.
Detroit would have won the Super Bowl this year. They wouldn't have won it until this year, but they would have won it this year. I don't think the Rams would have won the Super Bowl. I think Cincinnati probably wins that game. Well, the Bengals would have a title, and I think the Lions would have won it this year.
Damn.
Yeah, I could say that with Matthew Stafford as the quarterback with a coach like Dan Campbell, I think that Detroit would have won the Super Bowl sooner than the Rams would have ever won the Super Bowl with Jared Goff.
Okay. You guys are going to have to talk amongst yourselves for a moment. My timer's going off for my pressure cooker.
Yeah, Anthony, you're right. From a stats perspective, they are the same player. But the one thing I will say about Matthew Stafford over Jared Goff is Matthew Stafford in moments is a lot cooler. A lot of times you see in the pressure moments, from a stats perspective, sure. But when you watch when games are critical and things are happening, I think Matthew Stafford handles that pressure better than Jared Goff. I think in the Rams Super Bowl, the year that Jared Goff went, he made that crucial mistake and threw that interception. I believe. I think that he did that. Don't quote me on that. But again, I just watch those two type of quarterbacks, and I just look at what they can handle. From a stats perspective, absolutely. And I think from a stats perspective, the Lions were on the cusp of going to the Super Bowl this year anyway. So I think with better handling of situations, I think Stafford would have handled that better. Eric.
Dave, it's interesting on the chat. I don't think it's you, but I talk about it all the time. There's intangible things that stats don't show, like, late moments, managing a game-winning moments. And we always get stuck in this person has more yards or this person has more touchdowns, or we always get caught in those conversations, but we don't. That's why you're the logical logic, right? You see beyond the numbers and the stat sheet. That's why I enjoy debating with you. You're right. Stafford has that moxie, that last moment of the game. I'm gonna win the game. Kind of moxie to him, where Goff has great stats, but where Goff doesn't give you that feeling of, man, if he has the ball at the end of the game, he's going to get me. So, I agree with you. I mean, I think Stafford would have had the Lions in the Super Bowl, but everything happens for a reason, right? So this is all what was destined to happen.
Absolutely.
Damn, that's that's pretty deep. And I never quite thought about it the opposite way, that Detroit would have won. Oh shit! Here he comes. Look at him. He's mad. He's the fucking Winter Warlock. He is pissed off. Look at this man. All right, Jeff. Go ahead. Let us have it.
Nah. Oh, there you are. Yeah, I'm not going to say nothing. I'm just here to pop in. I'm at dinner in Iowa in the Midwest in Eric's home state. And I got to tell you, I just wanted to come in for a moment to say hello to the viewers. Gary's one of them. He's here with me. Carol's the other one, but she's not standing here right now. But anyhow, Ben Roethlisberger sucks. I don't know what you're talking about. I can't hear from a large restaurant. And I just wanted to make sure that my presence was known.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Again, we weren't even talking or discussing him, but thank you for bringing that up.
I'm just kidding. So what were you talking about? I heard something about Matt Stafford, but I couldn't hear. What were you talking about?
If Matt Stafford and Jared Goff, the trade never happened, does LA win a Super Bowl, or what the hell happens?
Hey, so I got to tell you, like, I find that, I'll always find that trade to be an interesting thing, always. I find the fact that Goff being traded, and then the idea that because they won it was because of Stafford. They did some other things during that season on the defensive side of the ball with Von Miller. There's some other additions. I mean, Goff took them to a Super Bowl. He didn't perform well against a top-ranked New England defense, and I got that. Who did Stafford beat? Did Stafford beat a top-ranked New England defense in the Super Bowl?
No,
he beat the
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati Bengals.
A Cincinnati defense, who you think's going to be in 11-6?
What's that?
I said a Cincinnati defense that you think's going to be really good this year, right?
Yeah. 3 years ago when they weren't good at all, and the only thing that moved them was an offense, because Cincinnati's defense wasn't even in the top 10 the year that they went to the Super Bowl. They had a good defensive play in the playoffs, but they didn't have a top 10 defense on the whole season. So the reality is New England had a top 10 defense, and Jared Goff was schooled. But you know who was schooled, and it's actually disappointing, was that McVay offensively got schooled. Like the offensive genius that McVay was, got destroyed, and there was some jealousy. There was some frustration, but at the end of the day, I think it was just as bad as coaching as it was anything else. So, anyhow.
When did Gandalf join the group?
What's that say?
It says, when did Gandalf join the group?
See, I just want to let you know that that's what I've been going for, and every time someone calls me Gandalf, I'm excited. Carol, on the other hand, doesn't call me Gandalf, and I get frustrated because the things she does call me are hurtful. It's hurtful to my self-esteem, and I feel emotional. She's right there. She's live on the show. Look, oh
Carol,
God.
do you make him emotional?
Hey, she says you don't look like Walter White, more like you look like a penis. She said something about a penis.
Oh, God.
That's funny. All right. Hey,
Nice.
listen,
So are you eating at Applebee's, the official bar and restaurant of the NFL?
Hey, I really just popped in to say what's up to you guys. I got to run. I really can't hear. I don't have here, but it's loud in the restaurant. But it's good to see all y'all. I'm just messing with you guys.
All right, Jeff. Have a good
I'll hit
day.
you up, and I'll listen to Eric's bullshit for the next 8 months until he's proven wrong. But I have to hear all the nonsense about if only the blah, 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 all the nonsense. But it's all good. Hey, you guys be good, man. I'll see you guys later.
All right, later, Jeff.
All right.
Okay, well, that was unexpected.
That was brought to you by Dave's Crab Cream.
Dave's Crab Anti-Itch Cream.
There you go.
So, speaking of which, I have to play that commercial again at some point.
I know.
So, okay, so we went over the Jared Goff thing, which, I never thought about Stafford winning a title with Detroit. I mean, this could be crazy if these two switch, and then if Goff does win Detroit a title. I mean, that could be kind of fuel for the fire between the two of them, although I know they like each other.
Oh, sure.
So, all right. Well, we'll skip on from there. Okay, let's go NFC East. Okay, so we know Oh, phew. Well, I don't know if the Giants or the Commanders are going to come in last in that division. I don't even know if Cowboys come in last in that division.
I think the Cowboys come in second by default.
I would agree with that. I don't think they're a good enough team to win the division. I don't think they're a good enough team to win second place, but I think the other two teams are just going to be that bad.
They lost more skill position players that they didn't replace, and they've got a quarterback who's unhappy, even though he says he's not happy. They got a defensive linebacker, defensive end, and Micah Parsons who's not happy, who says he's not happy, and makes no bones about not being unhappy. To me, Dallas defaults to second just because the Commanders and the Giants are that bad. Giants really need to find a quarterback. I think the Giants finish in last place. I like what Washington's doing. They're building young. I think they're going to try to build for sustained success, not just win this year type of thing. And maybe the Giants might be trying to do that too. But it's going to take a lot to overcome Philly.
Yeah.
I think
Throw up Anthony's comment real quick.
Which one?
No team in the NFC?
Oh, I don't.
Good. I agree with that.
I can agree with that.
Eric, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I don't like the way Philadelphia ended the year last year. I don't like the chemistry. I don't like the direction of the team. I don't like I believe momentum carries on to the next year. So Dallas wins this division with 10 wins. Philadelphia goes 9-8. The Giants go 7-10. And Washington goes 7-10. And it ends up being not as good of a division as we anticipate. Dallas gets 10 wins, or they're 10-7 because of Dak and because the offense still has Dak and it still has enough to get to 10 wins. But I don't like the direction of the Eagles. I don't like the way the coaching staff. I don't like that they didn't address it. So I think they go 9-8.
I will flip flop with you, Eric, and I will say that Philly goes 10-7, and the other way, because I think Philly, they might not have. I think on talent alone, based on the skill they brought in, I think they win games, and the skill they have, they win games despite maybe the issues. Dallas doesn't have the skill. They lost skill and never replaced it. They brought back Ezekiel Elliott to be a running back. I just don't see. They lost Michael Gallup. They have CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks. That's it. They don't have anybody else that puts fear into a defense. Dak Prescott's going to be throwing 50 times a game, and that becomes the loss. So to me, Philadelphia wins just on sheer talent alone, regardless of any issues.
Yeah, I just can't believe the Cowboys didn't try to do anything, and I know they really couldn't afford to. They got, like, last year was kind of their moonshot. They kind of, the Jets are kind of doing that now. Like, this is it. We're going to be so broke in the next couple of years. We got nothing. Dallas is like that. Bringing back Zeke, I'm not so down on it, just because they needed a runner who could punch it in from 2 yards out, and Pollard was not that guy. I love Pollard, but he doesn't play for him anymore. But he can catch a pass, great in the open field, but it was just no shot for him. I am interested to see just what the Giants are going to bring to the table, because last year was god awful.
No,
He was a small team for the past 3 years and did nothing.
You're right, Anthony.
Yep.
They have, but that's why I'm not saying that the Eagles go to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying they get out of the first round of the playoffs. I say they win the NFC East by default because they have talent. because the other teams in that division lack talent. I think regardless of their issues, the skill that they have on that, they win that by default. I don't think they win it because they're a 14-3 team heading to the Super Bowl. I think they just win that division by default.
Yeah. All right. So let's head off to the NFC South.
Do we have to?
Well, I mean, it could be a short conversation because I think we're all in the same boat. That it's kind of a crapshoot there. There's really nothing major happening there. Is New Orleans going to do something? Does Kirk Cousins, we keep talking about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers' Achilles happened week 1. Kirk Cousins happened, week 12? Something like that. I mean, so he's had a hell of a lot less time. Okay, yes, he's younger, but 7 years younger?
Well, again, Aaron Rodgers, quote unquote, technically could have come back to play last year, technically. Right. So again, and he had, and Kirk Cousins did have the same surgery that Aaron Rodgers had. So if that means anything, they're both about, Aaron Rodgers obviously is a couple months ahead of him in his recovery, but based on what the doctor said from Aaron Rodgers to Kirk Cousins, they're both they should be expected to play at the beginning of the season. So,
yeah. And put up Anthony's last comment there. And I got a little answer for that. I don't trust either one of them. I can't believe I'm saying this. Tampa Bay's got a shot. Tampa Bay is they didn't do bad in free agency.
Tampa Bay didn't really lose much.
No,
they have a shot by default, right? Because Carolina tried to surround Bryce Young with some weapons, but we really don't know yet. And so we probably aren't Carolina Panthers yet. The Falcons are. Who knows? They drafted a quarterback in the first round. Shows you how much faith they have long-term in Cousins. And I made the prediction, I think Cousins gets traded at the trade deadline. I'm standing by it.
Who?
I think there'll be a playoff team that loses their quarterback and that feels like they can still make a run and still make a playoff run. And the Falcons are out of it at that point. And I think Kirk Cousins gets traded.
The only way that happens at all, and I'll let you talk, Eric. I'm just going to be brief. The only way that happens is if a playoff team is in contention and they have the money on their cap to do it, because that's a lot of money you're going to have to pay that guy.
Yeah, and I think the Falcons will have to eat some of that in the trade. But I think they'll look at their season and I think they'll be out of it. And I don't think they're trying to, if they can't win early, they're trying to win. I think their plans changed after they drafted him, or after they drafted Penix. I think things they were like, hey, maybe there is another way to do this. So I think they have buyer's remorse a little bit. But I could see like any team, that's competitive, that's really good. Even a New York Jets, if Rodgers gets hurt again, God forbid, I don't think he will. But I could see a team figuring out a trade and trading for Kirk Cousins during a playoff run. But regardless, everybody in that division sucks. Tampa Bay probably wins it again at 10 wins because they're probably the best retaining roster there is. I don't believe in the Saints. Derek Carr, he may be okay statistic-wise, but once again in our Stafford conversation, he doesn't have the moxie late in games that you like, and he doesn't win games. And so ideally, I'm not a big NFC South. No hope for them again this year.
Oh, I agree.
I went old school in my background just so we know who the hell we're talking about, because sometimes I can get 3 out of the 4 and I forget the.
Yeah, I know. I always forget who's in these divisions. I'm like, who's that 4th team?
Yeah.
I still say I say the South comes down to Tampa and Atlanta. I'll say that, but I think Tampa still takes it.
All right. AFC South. A lot of people, I'm reading a lot of schedules, things and stuff, and it's driving me a little crazy. They're talking about the Jets losing in prime time to Indy. I mean, yeah, if we got no Aaron Rodgers, get it. But what the hell's up with that? I mean, obviously we all think that the Texans are going to win that division hands down. I mean, is anyone else disagree with that? If anyone, okay. So we got that. Jacksonville will do okay and do well. Titans.
I actually think the Titans finish in second place in that division. I like what the Titans have done. I do. I like Will Levis. I like the fact that they brought in Tyler Boyd to go along with DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley. I think the Titans have done a lot that has gone under the radar based on everybody talking about Houston, that the Titans have quietly assembled a pretty decent team. Again, it's not going to touch the Houston Texans in terms of their star power and what they've done, but I think the Titans have assembled a very good football team.
Okay, Eric.
Dave, out of all the things I've heard the Lonix say in my life, that was pretty good. I'll give you credit. I think you persuaded me for the first time listening to you. I think it's something that Jeff has not been able to do with logic. That was very logical. So I give you credit. I do think the Titans can finish second place, but it won't be more than 9-8.
Right.
I think the schedule won't allow that. But Jacksonville I just don't know. I just don't know what to take of Jacksonville. I mean, can Trevor Lawrence be this? I know the NFL wants him to be really, really good. They want him to be really good. They want to market him. They want him to be competitive. They want him to be great. But I just don't have that feeling with that team. The wins they have are fluky wins. They're not really legitimate, hey, we dominated kind of games. And Trevor Lawrence he kind of he's really streaky. He's hard to figure out. I don't know if I think he's a bust or I don't know if he's really good. He's kind of stuck there in the middle. He's kind of Derek Carr-ish, if you kind of think about it.
He has games where you think he's like all world, and then he has games that he looks like Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah. He's kind of Derek Carr-ish. I mean, if I had to compare him, that's who I kind of compare him. He's going to have a long career, but he's not going to do much. So I agree. The Colts, who knows? I mean, Indianapolis has some talent, but we don't know what AR-15 is. I mean, is Richardson going to be like this all-world athlete who's, zipping the ball down the field, running all over the place, or is he going to be terrible?
And I think his concussions last year have maybe made him stop and think. I mean, and if you try to, and here's the issue that we've talked about with RG3 and all these other guys. If you try to take a quarterback's natural instincts away from him and make him something he's not, you're kind of putting one hand behind his back, and now he's got to develop into that guy that he's not. And so that's the issue. Is AR-15 going to be the same guy running around, or is he going to sit more in the pocket and do those things? And if he does, is he going to be that guy, or is he going to be a shell of what he was before? So we don't even know.
Well, David, I got to give you the award for the worst pun ever on this show. With all his concussions, maybe he's going to stop and think. You are a horrible person. You get
maybe he's going to stop and try to think.
And may God have mercy on your soul. All right. So, Houston is loaded up. I'm afraid of Houston. I'm in the AFC. I'm afraid of Houston. Tennessee, I am not. That Levis, whatever the hell. I still can't pronounce his name. He's been in the league a year.
Levis.
I am not sold on that kid. Tannehill, is he still there or is he gone? I think he's still there.
A free agent.
Okay. I still think Jacksonville's going to pull out enough. Oh, there you go. Oh,
look at that.
I would put money
another trade candidate at the deadline.
Is he talking about the Cowboys guy or the
No,
Buffalo
he's talking about Stephon.
Okay. I agree with that then. I'm just a little pissed off that everyone, that there's a lot of people picking Indy over the Jets when they meet on, I think it's a Thursday night or so. I'm like, come on, man. If Aaron's is there, Aaron's going to go in there and kick ass.
Yeah, no way.
Okay. As long as I'm not alone in this.
Transition to the AFC East.
We're going to save that one to last because then I can give you the final word, Eric, and David can't interrupt you and he can't rebut. And next week he's going to come on and he's going to sprout a full head of hair. He's going to look like Ronald McFucking-Donald.
No.
Let's go to the NFC West. You got the Cards, the Rams, San Francisco, and the Seahawks. I don't know. It's got to be San Fran, but LA Rams had so much money, and they had some good draft picks finally, which they haven't had in the last 3 years. I think they're going to be a hell of a lot better than people give them credit for. Arizona, Kyler Murray. This is a make or break year for like Arizona as a team in a state, because if he screws this up, we're done about up to here. In the Seahawks, they got their wide receiver trio, definitely top 5 in football. I would put him top 2. But Geno was a New York Jet, and I think the Jets killed him. I think he climbed out of a hole 2 years ago, and I think he's crawling right back in it. So I don't know who comes in last between Arizona and Seahawks. Sorry, Brian. But I would really love to see Los Angeles win this division. I just don't think they're going to, unless there's some discord in the 49ers that I haven't seen yet. Eric.
Go ahead, Eric.
I'll be quick. It's San Francisco. That's it. The rest of it, all 3 of those teams. Otherwise, the Rams have a shot at a wild card
Right.
if they're healthy, but the other 2, no.
I will say this about San Francisco. They need to get that's a team that is loaded and fantastic. We all know that. But this is a team like Philadelphia last year. They better get their crap in order, whether it's getting their receivers taken care of, trading one, getting something back in value. They can't go into the season with Ayuk and Deebo Samuel trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And we've seen it with Philadelphia. That can destroy a team, regardless of how good you are, regardless of how dominant your roster is. San Francisco needs to take care of those issues before the season starts. Otherwise, it could get ugly during the year. But San Francisco should win this division as long as they take care of what they got to take care of.
All right. Now we got 2 divisions left. We're going back to the AFC. And we have the illustrious Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders, and the Chargers. How messed up. I'm going on a limb here. The Raiders are going to shock everyone this year.
And come in 3rd place.
Okay, I can't even say it with a straight face. Right. They're going to come in 3rd place because we all know Denver is terrible. And they didn't have a quarterback, and they still don't have one. By the way, they are having open tryouts on May 29th at 2 a.m., at the Broncos Stadium. They will be serving beer and Applebee's for anyone who wants to try out to be the quarterback. So
I want people to listen to this portion of the show and take it down, because we'll listen to Eric's final thoughts in the AFC East. So, Eric, give me your opinion on the West.
I have none. They all suck.
They all suck.
I mean, I don't have any hope for O'Connell and the Raiders. No. I mean, Minshew could surprise you and win 8 or 9 games. He could do it. The Chargers, I think Harbaugh needs draft picks, and I think it's going to take a while. But I think they're not this year. I just don't see it. I mean, didn't he trade away every weapon they had? And so I don't even know. And shame on me for being a host on the show. I don't even know who the weapons are for the Chargers this year.
The Chargers?
Yeah, what is the wide receiver set?
Brad McConkey, Clayton or Quentin Johnston.
yeah, he's still there.
Who's the running back?
Yeah.
Eckler still is.
No, Eckler's in Washington.
He's in Washington.
Oh shit, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. They got nothing. They don't have anything.
Karen Williams. No, he's in the Rams. I forget who. I don't know.
The dog knows more than we do.
Yeah. Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
Yeah, I honestly I don't know. There's the Quentin Johnson. I know that he's still there.
Ladd McConkey. I think Ladd McConkey is going to do well. I think he'll do well with Justin Herbert. But again, it is going to take time. I think defensively the Chargers are pretty good. They added some defensive pieces. I could see them surprising for a second. Look at. I'll say this because I'll say it because he won't say it. So I'm going to say it. I'm going to use the Eric Witt school of logic when it comes to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They have no number one wide receiver. Their number one wide receiver should be suspended by the NFL by the time season starts. They have a rookie wide receiver coming in. All they have is a tight end. They have no proven number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. They have a tight end and they have Xavier Worthy. They have Isaiah Pacheco, and their defense is very well. I think they brought most of them back. I think they got them all back. But so this team is getting younger, and if they win, it's because they have a generational, multi-talented quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, which is what most teams need is a franchise quarterback, because some parts are interchangeable, but the quarterback position is not an interchangeable part for 98% of the NFL. And that's what it really takes to be successful in this league. It is consistency from your coaching staff to your quarterback, for them to distribute the ball and know what to do with the things to make the team successful. And Patrick Mahomes has had to do that the last 2 years. And he's had to distribute the ball to people who aren't necessarily considered number 1 wide receivers or number 2 wide receivers. He's had to rely on his tight end to come up with the big play at the big time, but he's also had to rely on a coach and the coordinator and everybody to put those things around him to be successful. And that's what those teams do. So I don't write off the Kansas City Chiefs because they don't have a number 1 wide receiver. I don't write them off because they have a quality offensive coaching staff who puts Patrick Mahomes in a position to make plays. And Patrick Mahomes is one of those quarterbacks who are the top 3, 4, or 5 in the NFL. And I know he's number 1, that's not what I'm saying, but there's those teams who have that continuity about them that can succeed by learning and knowing how to distribute the ball to your playmakers on the field, whether they're number 1 wide receivers or number 4. Okay, MVS played in Kansas City last year, caught a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. He might not have been a number 1, but he showed up when he had to. And Patrick Mahomes made the plays that he had to. And that's what having that franchise quarterback does for teams. So that's why I don't discount those teams just because they don't have number 1s and all these playmakers and all this stuff, and they have young guys, but they can use them. So Kansas City still wins that division.
Okay. Well,
I
we
don't
all-
disagree. Bailey's coming in the door, so if the dogs bark, I'll mute myself real quick. But
hey, Bailey.
But listen, I do think they have a generational quarterback, but they're not winning more than 10 games, and they will take a step back from where they were. Because one, everybody's targeting them. Two, like Apollo said to Rocky in Rocky 3, you didn't have the edge. And I just don't see them having the edge this year. Rice isn't going to be there. Xavier Worthy weighs about as much as I do. And if he gets hit a few times, I don't see it. But I think the division's not a very good division. I don't see a lot of great teams in that division. And if they match up against a team like the Jets, who have a tough defense, who can take away options, there isn't a whole lot of options that Mahomes is gonna have. He's great. Don't get me wrong. He'll try to figure something out. But the Jets can take away their tight end. And Xavier Worthy, as small as he is, gets hit a few times by some of those boys in New York. It's going to be a tough ride. So I just don't. Houston's going to be better than they're going to be. The Jets are going to be better than they will be, but they'll win their division by default because the division is not very good.
And just remember that the Jets beat Kansas City last year. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's right. That pass interference call after the interception. Okay. Not that I'm sore about it or anything. So we'll move on to the last division here. We'll go myself, then Mr. Ludick over here, and then we'll go to Eric. I want to go through one more what if question, but it was so stupid. We'll just forgo that. All right. So your AFC East. Your last place team is going to be the New England Patriots. Your second to last place team is going to be your Buffalo Bills. And it will come down to the Week 17 game of Miami at the Jets. They will play Sunday night. It will be cold. Miami will fold as usual. And the Jets will take the AFC East. Book it, David.
You're good. You could think that. The Bills are going to win the AFC East. I'll tell you that right now. Because here's the deal. And I'm going to explain this to you really nice and subtly, quickly. Okay. Last year, the Bills started out 5-5, dead for the AFC East, won 5 straight games, won the AFC East. But here's the thing. And this is what you failed to remember. The Bills won 5 games in a row without Stephon Diggs. I think his largest output in that 5-game span was 64 or 65 yards. And I think he had 1 touchdown. So what you have now is you have an offense that is not going to be so concerned about throwing 14 targets to 1 receiver. You are going to have an offense that is going to spread the ball out, throw it to who they need to throw it to, not worry about a number 1 guy having to have his 14 targets or have his brother cry on Facebook their exit says, free me, do this and do that. What you're going to see is you're going to see a guy like Curtis Samuel line up in the backfield and be a running back. And they might hand the ball off to him. They might hand the ball off to James Cook. They might have them both go out for a pass. Now you're taking your defense and you're spreading it thin. And you're going to leave matchups that are going to be favorable to Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. So you're going to see an offense kind of built like Kansas City, where the wide receiver doesn't necessarily have to be your number 1 option anymore. But you're going to be able to create plays and make things happen creatively with the personnel that you're going to have on the field. Again, I think it comes down to, and I say this in all divisions, I believe this comes down to health. If a team is healthy. Look, I take nothing away from I take nothing away from the Jets. Absolutely nothing.
Everything has to do
Miami.
with
Wait, hold on, but Miami can't win in the cold. So anytime after November that they have to play in the cold, they lose. They can't win. It's proven. They don't win in the cold. So yes, Miami will fall to the Jets Week 17 at New York, but that's not going to be the division. the game that is going to choose the division is going to be week 18 when the Bills play the Jets. That's when your division is going to be determined.
We don't play in week 18.
Yeah, we do.
No, we don't.
We play you the last game of the season.
No, we do not. You play New England. You are New England.
Oh, we play you week 16.
Yes.
Yes. So we will go 3-0 in our last division games, and you will go 2-1. And that
will go down like a $5 horror on payday.
Alrighty, buddy. What you gonna bet? Okay, I'll make you a bet. I will buy a Zach Wilson jersey for the Jets and wear it if the Bills lose. I will buy a Jets Zach Wilson jersey and have to wear it.
He did beat y'all.
Respect. Zach Wilson's what, 2-2 with the Buffalo Bills?
Or I will get an Aaron Rodgers jersey. I'll get you. I'll wear. I'll if the Bills lose, I will buy an Aaron Rodgers jersey.
Dear, don't do that, man.
I will. I have no problem. I got a closet full of different jerseys, so Aaron Rodgers won't bother me. But in all seriousness,
you can just come online after that week on Wednesday and just be like,
it will be the Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Patriots.
Or you know what? Even better yet, you can post the Stephen A. fake laugh. You freaking douchebag.
It'll be the Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots.
There you go. All right, Eric. So we got 8 minutes left, and you, my friend, get
no. He doesn't get 8 minutes of the final word.
I'll try to make this not long. Look, I mean the Jets and Walter White. You're going to listen and not interject here. The Jets here. Here's the deal. It depends on Rodgers being healthy, but if the offense can score 24 points, it is the best defense in the division, and it isn't close. You guys lost your best pass rusher, and look, the Bills are due, and that the Bills are due. You're paying for title runs that didn't come into fruition, and so your idea, well, he could spread the ball around. That's great, but he's behind your running back, behind Cook, who's not a very big guy. You have no depth. Your offensive line, you have backups coming in that were backups last year. You signed La'el Collins, who is terrible. That's your depth at line. Okay.
We don't have backups coming in.
You do. Who your center? Mitch Morris came in. You replaced him with a guy.
Connor McGovern, who was in the center in Dallas, who played left guard last year. He's not a backup.
Okay, who came in at guard?
David.
What?
Who came in at guard?
David.
Stop.
He's allowed to say what he's got to say.
Okay.
No, he asked me a question. I'm answering.
Yeah, so they had a backup come in on the interior part of the line who was a backup last year. So, but La'el Collins is your back swing tackle. He's not good.
He's a backup.
Yeah, he's been on a couple different teams, but you need depth. And here's the problem: is you don't have the depth because you don't have the money, and because the bills are due. And so the idea is, like Carolina happened with Carolina and Cam Newton, a similar situation, that Josh Allen isn't he's a good quarterback, an elite quarterback, but he isn't some transcendent, I can't pronounce the word. He isn't some fantastic quarterback that's above Brady, that's above Manning, that doesn't go through transitions during their reigns. Tom Brady had years he was 9-7 and 10-6 when he didn't have the horses around him. You don't have the horses. Your number one wide receiver is a rookie who was picked in the second round, who is good at combat catches but struggles with separation. So when the games are tight, you're going to be relying on somebody to be the guy, the go-to guy. You don't have it. Your tight end, okay, great, but he's a second-year player. James Cook has 1 year of good stats, okay? And your running back's going to be your go-to player in a passing situation. You just don't have it. So the idea is the Bills need to not ruin Josh Allen by making him hold on to the ball and try to wait for somebody to get open, because they don't have elite guys to get open this year. They don't have the horses on offense, and the defense doesn't have the splash players to be elite and win games. They need to really, really, really eke out games and be smart about how they use Josh Allen and not expect him to go win them a bunch of games. Second off, your schedule, okay? It's terrible all around. You got maybe 2 games that are easy. Arizona, week 1. And if you lose to Arizona, it's over. You're not going to go to – you're not going to beat – I got you beating the Niners, but that's a tough game. Then you got to go to L.A. That's a tough game the week after. You got the Jags, who you should beat. I have you beating. You have the Dolphins on the road. So the idea I'm going to sweep the Dolphins, okay, you did last year, but Miami's a good team, so you can't count on that. I got you sweeping New England, but you lost to them last year. I got you the Texans on the road, the Ravens on the road, and the Jets on the road in 3 weeks. Yeah. Then you got the
I say in those games we probably go 1-2.
You got the Titans, the Seahawks, the Dolphins again. The Colts probably aren't very good. You got the Chiefs. You got the Niners.
We beat the Chiefs in the regular season.
You got the Rams. You got the Lions. At the Lions, I mean, you don't have there is no chance. I mean, if you look at it, and so that's just the truth of the matter.
No, I get it.
The truth of the matter is that this is a transitional year that Brady went through with New England when he lost his weapons, when Gronk was gone for a while. He went through it. It's a year that you just have to be smart, because if you stick him back there and you want him to win, that's how Carolina ruined Cam Newton. And I'd rather you guys actually win something when you have money to spend and your players throw around it, because you need to be smart about it. But I've got the Jets. The Jets are a fantastic defense. They're tough. And if the offense can score 24 points because they have an MVP winning quarterback who knows how to win, who's smart and wins pre-snap with his mind, mind's the last thing to go. You got the Jets. You got the Dolphins, who I'm unsure about. It'll either be the Dolphins or the Bills, but both teams will be 9-8. The Jets will have it won early. And then I think New England will be 7-10. New England gets better as the year goes on. They're not a terrible 7-10. They will start getting it going.
New England wins 5 games next year. The Bills win at least 10-11.
Okay. Well, we'll keep track. I keep saying we're going to write these stuff down, but we never do. So,
I'll write it down.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Write it down. That's good. All right. So for our main portion of the program, we're going to call it a night, and want to thank you all for watching. Eric, thank you for the final word. I don't know if you two want to stay on a little longer and banter back and forth, but I need to go finish cooking dinner for the fam. So with that being said, thank you all. You have a good night, and we'll see you next Wednesday from the couch.
Y'all be good. Take care. Eric, you have a good night.
Yep. I'll talk to you on the chat.
Later.
Later.